Hi peeps, welcome back to the channel. Oh my goodness. So we always tape these things a little bit ahead, but it's mid-January right now, and I know I'm in Northern California, but it's cold. I know it's not as cold as the Midwest because they're having like below 20 degrees. I'm like, I can't even imagine. But we are having freezing weather. So it's in the 30s, like 31, 30. It's cold. So that's my weather update for today. I am just here trying to keep warm, and I have been thinking in 2025, like, what do I want to talk about? Like, what kind of things do I want to bring the UnMothered community that is growing? Thank you so much. I've had a lot of growth this last year with the private Facebook group, our UnMothered community. You are welcome to join that if you have struggles with your mom, or you are in no contact with your mom, or your mom is a narcissist or has addictions, those kind of things. You are welcome to come into that community. There are 3 questions that you have to answer, and I stick to that. I will send you a little note if you don't and let you know you cannot join the community unless you answer those questions. And then you can come in. And we're trying this year to just stay connected a little bit more. I didn't really know where I wanted that whole thing to go, and it just started growing and growing. And so now I am going to be in there a little bit more, asking some questions, hoping you guys will talk to each other and ask me questions in there that I can answer. And at some point I would love to do a live or maybe a little masterclass and have you guys join in, and we can do a little Q&A and just kind of see where we are in this UnMothered community, how we can help each other. So that's something that I'm working on this year. This year is about really taking care of all of me spiritually, physically, mentally. Last year was really hard. If you follow me along on social media, I did a whole post on how 2024 was a year. It was not good. Some of the things that I've learned through that, and also just the faith that God, He never left my side, even when I can't even tell you how many tears I cried on my Bible, in my journal, in my car, like all these things. And so it brought me to this question today of, does God take away things for your own good? Oof, that's kind of a loaded question, but I do see a lot of times where well-meaning people pray for things that they absolutely want and they think it's good for them, and then God has other plans. And so when you've prayed for things that are good and then it all comes crashing down, was that a punishment or was that a protection where God was pulling you out of something that He said, I know you think this is good for you, but it's not? So in this episode, I want to discuss the difference between blessings, curses, and shifts in our life. One of the things that I hear clients telling me is, am I being punished because of these things? And is that coming from like my childhood? Is it because of the sins of my mother, the sins of my father, that kind of thing? I don't think so. There are some stories in the Bible, but I think it's more that the kids followed along the rules of their parents instead of what God was telling them. There is a verse in Ezekiel 18:20, and it says, the child will not share the guilt of the parent, nor will the parent share the guilt of the child. I think when you become an adult, like you have to, so even though we're in this unmothered space and there are things we can learn from growing up with a dysfunctional mother, I don't believe in the adage of blaming my parents for how I turn out. I think I'm responsible for that. And so if I'm doing something that I think is good, but God is saying like, that's not the direction I wanted you to go in, I think He's going to shift it for you. And I don't necessarily think that that's a punishment. I think that that's just Him trying to protect you sometimes from yourself. We are responsible for the choices that we make. And also, I think sometimes things just happen that we don't see coming. But I think through it all, God will work it out for your good if you allow him to take charge. That's the big one. And will God take away some things that for your own good, even though you like them? Yeah, he will. I think sometimes we think that we're so blessed that everything we pray for is we deserve it and we're going to get it. That's just point blank, period. And I see a lot of people saying that. Well, I have fasted, I have prayed, and God knows my prayers, and I just know he's going to answer this for me. And I'm like, well, I don't think you really know. I think you really want to know. I think you really want it to go that way. You're definitely praying for it to go that way. But do we really know? God's path is so different than the path that we think out for our lives. Is it maybe that we wanted something so badly, but it's not the right time, the right circumstances, or maybe God is just, nope, I'm going to shift you in a different direction because maybe we prayed for the wrong thing. I've seen that happen a lot of times where even well-meaning people will come up to other people and say yeah, not really sure, this looks, you should, be cautious. And they're like, nope, we've prayed about this. It's going to happen. We just know it's going to happen. But everyone else is seeing, yeah, I don't know if that's a good idea or not. And then sure enough, it doesn't work out that way. And so we're all kind of sitting back going, well, we kind of told you probably wasn't going to happen that way. Not that we're God. We don't know for sure. But there are definite signs where when everyone else is seeing it and you're not, I think that's a time for you to step back. And really, if you have more than one person saying yeah, I don't know, I'm not really sure about that, I'm not feeling that in my spirit. And there's 5, 6, 10 people telling you that. And you're like, nope, I've prayed, I've fasted, I'm in my prayer room. I, did all the things. And this is what I'm doing. It's like when you have that many people coming to you, when God takes it away, it is for your own good. And you have to listen to that. And so you got 4 or 5 people telling you, be cautious. I would pay attention to that, because also God could be through you, helping your friend to say, beware, be careful. I think when those things do happen, we always go to the question of why? God, why did this happen? And most of the time, we probably won't have a definitive answer. In time, we may understand a little bit more. But one thing I know for sure is that God doesn't make mistakes. So when the door is shut, it's being shut for a reason. I don't necessarily think it's a curse. I see people going oh, it's a curse of your family. It's a generational curse. I don't like the term generational curses. I definitely think there is something to that. I don't think you need to hold that into your being. I don't think you need to hold tightly to a generational curse. First and Second Kings, we saw that all over the place, where the sins of the father, it was the son didn't learn the sins of the father and he continued to do what was evil in the Lord's sight. It makes that very clear. It's within the Lord's sight. So I think the only reason you're going to have a curse in your family is if you continue to do the same kind of things in your family that your relatives, your ancestors have done, thinking you're going to get a different result. And so is God going to take those things away? Yeah, absolutely. He's trying to tell you, go a different way, do something different. So I think that that's where a generational curse can come in, where, God's going to take away things for your own good. I just think that dysfunction in general is something that is very up to us to change and to listen to God's voice, to help him guide you in a different path. So even when he takes things away, takes people away, he takes possessions away, he takes jobs away, he'll take things away. Sometimes those things do just happen. It's just life. Not everything has to have this huge, super meaning to it. But I do think when you're praying for certain things and then something happens and you're like, why did this happen, God? Why did you make this happen? you have to look a little beyond yourself and realize, like, was this the right time? Was this the right person? Was this the right place? And really kind of learn the lesson from that. Really just sit back with it a little bit and try to understand it. So even if the lesson is painful, I think one day we'll understand, even if it's not here on earth. One day we'll get an answer for it. Sometimes we don't have answers for things. When I think of all the personal struggles that I went through last year, the struggles that I watch friends go through, the world that's going through things, hurricanes and fires, it's hard to understand the reason for that. And it feels like a punishment, but God's character is the same. Victory is born out of struggle. I read this line in a Bible app last week, and it just struck me between the eyes, because it's like, wow, yeah, victory will always come out of the struggle. I do believe in that. It's how we look at the struggle that counts. I was reading something else in it, and it went on to say that God accomplishes more through our pain than our successes. So hold on to his unchanging hand. And I loved that, because I think when I look back at some things that have happened, he did accomplish so much more through the pain. It sometimes through our pain, it wakes us up in a whole different realm than what we would actually see if we were just going through our lives and everything was just kind of copacetic and we're just like, nothing's really majorly going on. Yes, I'm praying. I hear God. It's all good. When you go through a really hard struggle, that's where rubber meets the road. That's when you have to dig in and sit with him, really sit with him quietly and go, why did this happen? What should I do through this? What are you trying to tell me? Are you trying to tell me anything? I don't know. But can I sit here quietly and ask some questions and really see, is this something that I need to consider? Maybe I was going down a wrong path. Maybe I was hanging out with the wrong people. Maybe I made some bad decisions. Maybe I was not doing something that was very godly. I mean, there's so many situations where people want to blame everybody else, but if you look at certain things and you really look within, you might look at yourself and go, oh, yeah, that I wasn't really doing that, where it was good through the Lord's eyes. So sometimes he's putting a stop to it. Why? Because he loves you and he's trying to protect you, even though it hurts. We don't like that. We want the easy life. We want stuff that doesn't feel uncomfortable or have to shift to a different place. I hate this and I love it too. I hate it that we have to struggle to learn the lessons, to get more wise through them. For me, it's happened this way more times than not. And some of my worst struggles have brought me the most growth. And it only happens when we learn and grow from it. If we ignore the reasoning, we may have to walk through the same struggle again until we learn it. In Lamentations 3:22-23, it says, because of the Lord's great love, we are not consumed, for his compassions never fail. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. That's the one thing we can depend on, is God's faithfulness. People think that every time a struggle comes about, that it must be a curse. I'm being cursed. The enemy is after me. And, yeah, he's got a target on your back. You better believe it. If you're a believer in Jesus Christ and you are doing some good ministry work or just being out there, even in your job, and you're like loving God and helping people and serving, there's a target on your back for sure. And while I do think that the enemy is trying to distract or discourage us from accomplishing what we're setting out to do, I also think that we have an ego that gets in the way of really listening to God's path and instead of our own. So God will shift you for your own good, and he will upend everything you've set out to do. And while it may seem like a punishment, he actually wants to steer you in the right direction. So a couple of things to consider before we wrap this conversation up is know the difference between something you brought on yourself versus something that was completely out of your control. Either way, ask God to guide you to a better place. So, for instance, the fires in California are going on right now. That wasn't anyone's fault. Like, that's a natural disaster. Like, you didn't ask for that. But you can ask some really good questions and ask God to guide you of what your next steps are. And we're all praying for you for sure. That's just like devastating. It hurts my heart so much because I do love California. I will always love California. I'm born and bred California girl, and we are in the battle. And so I think that is something that was just, nobody asked for that. And whatever that lesson is, whatever the situation is that people have to go through from here on out, I think that God will guide you if you ask him. We are not God, so we don't have all the answers to things that happen. We can guess and try to understand, but I think the better thing is to listen for next steps. And before you jump into big decisions, take your time to make sure that everything is lined up properly. Too many times we say, I'm relying on faith to make this work out, which is sometimes it means that you haven't done your homework of checking things while you are praying and relying on a faith that makes sense. So the thing to remember is no matter what the struggle or difficulty is right now, God will be there. He remains the same God that will carry you out of the storm. Listen to his promptings. It may take a while for things to get better, but I can guarantee you it will get better. This is just a season in your life, and if you listen to his voice, he will guide you in the right place. So I hope this episode helped you. I don't even know what I'm going to talk about next time. Still like going through all these different books and different things to bring some good information to you guys. As always, I want you to just live your best life, listen to God's promptings, change the way you've grown up. If you've grown up in a hard situation, know that you can change that at any time. And he wants that for you. He wants you to have a beautiful, healthy family. And so do I. So until next time, peeps, take it easy. We'll see you later.